gunman actually mocked the lax security in his twisted manifesto that he released a few minutes before the attack, writing, "This level of incompetence is insane," and pointing out that had he been an Iranian intent on doing something bad at that event, it could have been an awful lot worse.
So Piers Morgan just delivered one of his most important takedowns yet about the normalization of political violence in America. This wasn't just another panel discussion. This was moral clarity in a moment when conspiracy theories are running wild and assassination attempts are becoming routine. Let's break this down.
Well, and in a way, even worse, this guy had got a train from California to Washington and then just calmly booked himself into one of the Hilton hotel rooms where nobody had checked the fact that he was armed to the teeth. He had 2 guns on him when he made his attack. He had knives on him and so on. And he was even able, in his twisted manifesto, as I referenced earlier, to openly taunt the Secret Service. So much as I would give credit to the Secret Service for what they did once he made the attack in stopping him reaching the ballroom, the reality is he should never have been able to get as far as he did in the first place, armed in the way that he was.
The security failures here are absolutely staggering. We're talking about someone traveling cross-country, checking into a hotel with multiple weapons, and the Secret Service having zero awareness. After Butler and the golf course incident, this represents a pattern of systemic incompetence that's genuinely terrifying.
And I just find it incredible that when you have a president as controversial as Donald Trump, and where it's obvious a lot of people hate him as much as like him, after 2 attempts on his life, one in Butler, Pennsylvania, where he got hit, and one on the golf course where I think it was miraculous that he didn't get killed that day either. The fact that this guy was able just to calmly book himself into a room on the Friday, the day before, and no one's checking that he is a potential attacker with loads of weapons.
The Butler shooting where Trump's ear was grazed by millimeters and the golf course attempt where an assassin waited in the bushes for hours, both should have triggered massive security overhauls. Instead, we get a 3rd incident where someone walks armed into a presidential event. This is institutional failure.
Jack Posobiec, the problem here is if you look at this twisted manifesto of this latest shooter, Cole Allen, described by people who knew him as a near genius. He was a teacher who'd recently won awards. Everyone seemed to like him and so on. He wasn't a natural red flag person where you'd look at him and think, well, he's got criminal convictions and history of violence or any of that. None of that appeared to be there. Seems to have been a brilliant mind, poisoned, it would appear, by propaganda from the left. I mean, a lot of the language used in his manifesto is the language of the hard left against Trump. And there's no denying that.
This profile is exactly what makes domestic terrorism so dangerous. High-functioning, intelligent individuals who consume extreme political content until they snap. Award-winning teachers don't typically appear on threat assessments, which is precisely why ideological radicalization through media consumption is so insidious and hard to detect.
And I've warned for a while that if you continually say that Trump is Hitler or Stephen Miller is Hitler or whatever, whoever it is, then to a deranged mind, eventually they're going to think they're doing a public service and a duty by killing the new Hitler. Why wouldn't they? So I do think language really matters. So what do you say to people like Jojo who think that the comments of Kimmel about Melania Trump having the glow of an expectant widow, they're just a comedian being a comedian?
The Hitler comparisons aren't just hyperbole anymore. They're literal incitement. When mainstream politicians and media figures repeatedly call someone the next Hitler, mentally unstable people will eventually believe they're morally obligated to stop another Holocaust. The rhetoric has real-world consequences.
But before it happened, Kimmel's quip, if you can put it like that, although I thought it was singularly humorless in the moment, and even more so now, was, "Our First Lady is here. Mrs. Trump, you have the glow like an expectant widow." Now, Melania Trump has now responded. Kimmel hides behind ABC because he knows the network will keep running cover to protect him. She's written on X, "Enough is enough. It's time for ABC to take a stand." Now, Kimmel did this sort of spoofed cutaways of Melania, the president, and the cabinet while telling jokes he would have told if he'd been at the White House Correspondents' Dinner, included the joke about Stephen Miller, saying that Miller was baby Hitler, traveled in time to kill the US. Let me start with you, Brandon Tatum. Melania is getting more and more outspoken at the moment. She's clearly enraged by what Jimmy Kimmel said here, which in the context of what then happened, at the White House Correspondents' Dinner, you can understand her rage. To describe her as having the glow of an expectant widow when someone has launched an assassination attempt seems particularly tasteless.
The timing is absolutely chilling. Kimmel jokes about Melania becoming a widow, then days later someone actually tries to make her one. This isn't coincidence, it's the inevitable result of normalizing political assassination in entertainment. Comedy becomes prophecy when violence is glorified.
There's been increasingly incendiary rhetoric in American political discourse now for many years from the left and the right. Everyone is culpable in this area, I think. I think it's disingenuous of people on the right to say it's just the crazy lefties. I think it's disingenuous of people on the left to deny they're doing it and then to pretend that none of their side do it. Everyone's been doing this. The rhetoric's got increasingly unpleasant, nasty, violent, fractious, divisive, polarizing, and inevitably, in a country with over 400 million weapons, firearms, you're going to get unhinged people who take it in their own hands to exact their warped form of justice, which is they think, oh, well, this guy's the new Hitler. I've got to try and kill him. They're all Hitler. They're all Nazis. We've got to kill them. I understand the warped mindset. If you keep being told someone's Hitler, then eventually you're going to take out Hitler as a public service.
Yeah, I agree with you on that point. I'll push back on another point, but I do think people...
The 400 million firearms statistic is crucial context here. In any other country, this rhetoric might just be words. But in America, with more guns than people and minimal mental health infrastructure, inflammatory language becomes a loaded weapon in the hands of unstable individuals.
I walked out right next to Jake Tapper, this is at the White House Correspondents' Dinner, and looked him in the eye and I said, how dare you? You've caused so much division in this country pushing lies. We're not going to call it gaslighting anymore. You've lied to the people.
That confrontation with Jake Tapper represents something bigger. Direct accountability for media figures who've spent years pushing divisive narratives. When journalists become activists, they lose credibility to act shocked when their rhetoric contributes to real violence. The reckoning was overdue.
Now, I thought that was incredibly disingenuous by Norah O'Donnell for two reasons. One, of course, she was inferring that this had been said about President Trump. She knew that, he knew that, and it was just a ridiculous game she was playing to try and feign innocence. Oh, you think he was talking about you? But secondly, I was trying to think, if that had been Obama or Biden or any of the Democrat presidents in particular, would she have read out these incredibly defamatory comments? And the truth is, I don't think she would have done. So there is one rule for Trump in their eyes and one for everybody else. So on that, I'm with you completely.
The Norah O'Donnell example perfectly illustrates media double standards. Would CBS read violent threats against Obama or Biden on air while feigning ignorance? Never. But Trump gets treated as fair game for assassination humor. The bias isn't subtle, it's institutional.
I mean, surely you don't think that anything that happened at the White House Correspondents' Dinner was set up or staged, do you?
The conspiracy theories emerge because institutional credibility is completely shot. When the same agencies that botched Butler and the golf course incident claim another attempt was handled properly, people naturally become suspicious. Trust requires competence, and we're not seeing it.
We should agree collectively that we are no longer going to view attacks on politicians if it's someone from the other side, right? People are no longer going to take an immediate position, oh, it must be faked, it must be staged.
Piers.
And secondly, the jokes about, wait a minute, Brandon, and jokes about political violence or about Trump being dead and his wife being a glowing widow, whatever, given there have been 2 attempts in his life before that joke was made, should be ruled actually unacceptable. That actually it's not funny, nothing that encourages the idea of dead politicians. I was out the other night at the Time 100 gala and I sat with Senator Mark Kelly and with Gabby Giffords. And I remember when Gabby Giffords got shot and very nearly killed. And it was a reminder to me that political violence, whatever side you're on, is completely unacceptable, and rhetoric about political violence should be completely unacceptable. And I've seen it on both sides.
Here's where I
and I also
Piers.
think calling out attacks and incidents involving politicians where you
Piers.
take a view because it's not your
Piers.
side, I
Piers.
think is wrong.
The Gabby Giffords reference is perfect moral clarity here. When she was shot in 2011, both parties condemned it immediately. Now we have people making widow jokes about sitting first ladies. The standards have completely collapsed, and someone has to draw the line.
Stop joking about politicians dying or being killed. Stop questioning and querying that they're staged when they're obviously not. And stop glorifying in rhetoric political violence at all.
These three principles, no assassination jokes, no false flag claims, no glorifying violence, should be basic democratic norms. The fact that they need to be stated explicitly shows how far we've fallen. This isn't partisanship, it's defending civilization itself.
I'm not sure it's as simple as simply saying the internet's winding people up, social media's winding people up, and so on, when actually the facts suggest this has always been a problem in a country which is awash with guns, and a lot of people, many of whom suffer from mental illness or anger management issues or whatever it may be.
Exactly right. Lincoln, Garfield, McKinley, and JFK were all killed long before Twitter existed. Political violence in America has deep historical roots tied to our gun culture and weak institutions. Social media amplifies existing problems rather than creating entirely new ones.